Psychopath versus Sociopath. A psychopath is cold, calculated, and often lacks empathy while hiding behind a calm exterior. A sociopath is impulsive, emotionally unstable, and more likely to act out in anger or frustration. Disciplined versus motivated. A disciplined person takes action even when they don't feel like it, relying on habits and consistency. A motivated person is driven by inspiration and enthusiasm, but those feelings can come and go. Boss versus leader. A boss gives orders and expects results simply because they are in charge. A leader earns respect through character, leads by example, and motivates others to give their best even when nobody is watching. Just versus vengeful. A just person focuses on truth, fairness, and doing what is right for everyone involved. A vengeful person seeks personal satisfaction through retaliation, allowing anger and resentment to guide their actions. Cunning versus emotionally intelligent. A cunning person reads people well, but often uses that knowledge to manipulate situations for personal gain. An emotionally intelligent person understands emotions, both their own and others, to build trust, resolve conflict, and strengthen relationships. Arrogant versus confident. An arrogant person constantly tries to show their superiority and often looks down on others. A confident person believes in their abilities, stays secure in who they are, and does not need approval or admiration to feel valuable. Manipulative versus persuasive. A manipulative person tries to control decisions through deception, guilt, or hidden intentions. A persuasive person influences others through clear communication, honest arguments, and mutual understanding without taking away their freedom of choice. Loving versus obsessive. Love is built on trust, respect, and the willingness to support another person's happiness without trying to control them. Obsession is driven by fear, insecurity, and the need to possess someone, often placing control and attachment above their freedom and well-being. Feared versus respected. A feared person gains obedience through power, intimidation, or the threat of consequences. A respected person earns loyalty through character, wisdom, and the way they treat others. Fear may force people to follow, but respect inspires them to do so willingly. Asocial versus introverted. An asocial person deliberately avoids social interaction and often has little interest in forming relationships or participating in social activities. An introverted person enjoys spending time alone and recharges in solitude, but can still value deep friendships and meaningful connections. The key difference is that introverts prefer less social stimulation, while asocial people tend to avoid social engagement altogether. Intelligent versus wise. An intelligent person can quickly understand ideas, recognize patterns, and solve difficult problems. A wise person uses experience, perspective, and sound judgment to navigate life's challenges and make thoughtful decisions. Intelligence is about acquiring knowledge, while wisdom is about using that knowledge in the right way at the right time. Brave versus insane. A brave person faces danger, fear, or uncertainty, while fully understanding the risks involved. An insane person acts recklessly without regard for consequences, often confusing impulsive behavior with courage. The difference is that bravery requires awareness while insanity ignores it. Calm versus emotionally suppressed. A calm person experiences emotions but remains balanced and in control when facing stress or adversity. An emotionally suppressed person hides or ignores their feelings, often pushing them deep beneath the surface instead of dealing with them. Calmness reflects emotional control, while suppression reflects emotional avoidance. Ambitious versus greedy. An ambitious person strives for success through hard work, growth, and the pursuit of meaningful goals. A greedy person is driven by an endless desire for more wealth, power, or status regardless of the impact on others. Ambition seeks achievement, while greed is never satisfied. Lonely versus solitary. A lonely person feels isolated and longs for connection, companionship, or understanding from others. A solitary person chooses to spend time alone and often finds peace, comfort, and independence in solitude. Loneliness is the pain of being alone, while solitude is the enjoyment of it. Charismatic versus flirtatious. A charismatic person naturally attracts attention through confidence, presence, and the ability to inspire or connect with others. A flirtatious person seeks attention through charm, playful attraction, or romantic interest. Charisma influences people broadly, while flirtation is usually directed at specific individuals. Chaotic versus freedom-seeking. A chaotic person rejects structure, rules, and order without concern for the consequences. A freedom-seeking person values independence and personal choice, but still understands the importance of responsibility. Chaos destroys boundaries, while freedom seeks to live beyond unnecessary ones. Depressed versus sad. Sadness is a natural emotional response to disappointment, loss, or difficult experiences, and usually fades with time. Depression is a persistent mental state that can affect thoughts, energy, motivation, and daily life, often lasting long after the original cause is gone. Sadness is an emotion, while depression is a condition. Dependent versus loyal. A dependent person relies heavily on others for emotional support, validation, or a sense of security. A loyal person chooses to remain supportive and committed while maintaining their own independence. Dependence comes from a need to hold on, while loyalty comes from a decision to stay. Genius versus delusional. A genius sees possibilities, solutions, and connections that others often overlook but remains grounded in reality. A delusional person believes ideas or perceptions that persist despite clear evidence to the contrary. Genius expands understanding while delusion distorts it. Cold-blooded versus peaceful. A cold-blooded person remains emotionally detached and is willing to make harsh decisions without compassion or remorse. A peaceful person seeks harmony, understanding, and resolution without unnecessary conflict. Both may appear calm on the surface, but one is guided by indifference, while the other is guided by empathy. Optimistic versus pessimistic. An optimistic person tends to focus on opportunities, possibilities, and the belief that things can improve. A pessimistic person focuses on potential problems, setbacks, and the likelihood that things may go wrong. Optimism looks for reasons to hope, while pessimism looks for reasons to doubt. Emotionless versus self-controlled. An emotionless person appears detached, showing little emotional response or connection to what is happening around them. A self-controlled person feels emotions just as strongly as anyone else, but chooses how and when to express them. One lacks emotional expression, while the other masters it. Delusional versus hopeful. A delusional person clings to beliefs that ignore reality, facts, or clear evidence. A hopeful person recognizes the difficulties of a situation but still believes that things can improve. Delusion denies reality, while hope works within it. Globalistic versus nationalistic. A globalistic person views the world as interconnected and believes that international cooperation can help solve shared challenges. A nationalistic person places the interests, culture, and sovereignty of their own nation above broader global concerns. One emphasizes global unity, while the other prioritizes national identity. Forgetful versus forgiving. A forgetful person simply loses memories or fails to remember past events, whether intentionally or not. A forgiving person remembers what happened, but chooses to let go of resentment and anger. Forgetting removes the memory, while forgiveness removes the burden. Egoistic versus narcissistic. An egoistic person primarily focuses on their own needs, goals, and personal interests. A narcissistic person not only focuses on themselves, but also craves admiration, validation, and a sense of superiority over others. Egoism is self-centeredness, while narcissism is self-obsession. Strategic versus instinctive. A strategic person carefully plans ahead, considers consequences, and makes decisions based on long-term goals. An instinctive person relies on intuition, experience, and immediate reactions in the moment. Strategy thinks several moves ahead, while instinct acts on what feels right now. Passive versus patient. A passive person avoids taking action, often waiting for circumstances or other people to decide the outcome. A patient person remains calm and willing to wait, but stays ready to act when the right moment arrives. Passivity avoids action, while patience delays it with purpose. Idealized versus inspirational. An idealized person is admired to such an extent that people may overlook their flaws and place them on a pedestal. An inspirational person motivates others through their actions, values, or achievements without demanding admiration. Idolization creates followers, while inspiration encourages growth. Existentialist versus nihilistic. An existentialist believes that life has no predetermined meaning, but that each person has the freedom to create their own purpose. A nihilist believes that life is ultimately meaningless, and that purpose, values, and meaning are human inventions without real significance. Existentialism creates meaning, while nihilism rejects it. Hedonistic versus ascetic. A hedonistic person seeks pleasure, comfort, and enjoyment as important goals in life. An ascetic person practices self-discipline, restraint, and the rejection of unnecessary pleasures in pursuit of higher values or personal growth. One embraces indulgence, while the other embraces sacrifice. Idealistic versus pragmatic. An idealistic person is guided by principles, values, and a vision of how things should be. A pragmatic person focuses on what works in reality, adapting to circumstances and prioritizing practical results. Idealism pursues the perfect outcome, while pragmatism pursues the achievable one.